Welcome to Mediocre Gaming, and today we're talking about Anthem. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and salutations. Today, what do we know about Anthem? Let's get to it. So the E3 demo of the game was interesting. I think I would have been more interested in Anthem had there not been other EA missteps in previous titles. So what do we know about Anthem? What do we know? And we'll make a couple guesses based on information that we have. So we know Anthem is going to be released February 22nd, 2019. There'll be 4 javelins at launch. It is a 4-player co-op with no PvP at the start of launch. There may be PvP down the road. They haven't said. Now you will start with the Ranger Javelin, and you will unlock the other 3 by the time you get to about 25% done with the campaign. So most of the campaign you'll be able to use whatever Javelin you want. Related to that progression, you have your pilot progression, and then you have your Javelin progression. And drops are based on your pilot progression. So even though you got a new Javelin, you should still get better drops because of your pilot being a higher level. Fort Tarsis and the Strider are the only 2 single-player areas in the game. And also the only 2 areas where it is first person. They wanted to give a little bit more of a sense of the crowds at Fort Tarsis in the marketplace, and the overall kind of claustrophobia of all the mass of people and lack of general space in those areas. So that is first person. Everywhere else is third person, and also multiplayer. So all areas, all missions, aside from the tutorials, which you have to do by yourself, but everything else you can matchmake with, and you can play with other players if you so choose. If you want to play everything by yourself, you can, with the exception of the strongholds. The strongholds, you have to have a full squad of 4 people in order to do it. Now, most of the missions, including the strongholds, at this time, they all scale to your level. So if you're level 30 and you're playing with other people that are level 1, it'll be just as challenging for you as it is for them. They're not going to wipe out right off the bat. The enemies will not take as much damage from you. All the damage and the damage they do to you is going to be normalized. The damage that you take to your Javelin will be visible, but it does not affect your abilities and your ability to do damage. Repairing your Javelin, all you have to do is get pickups. Now, in addition, Fort Tarsis, there will be merchants and the role-playing, the storytelling. So most of the storytelling and missions you'll pick up in Fort Tarsis, as well as choosing your Javelin and modifying your Javelin and adding new loot to your loadout. There will be multiple loadouts, at least 2 per Javelin, possibly more. Related to that, your inventory space is limited, but it shouldn't be burdensome. So there will be some necessary upkeep with your inventory, but it shouldn't be difficult. Like you have 2 legendary weapons and you can only keep 1, and nothing like that. So you should have enough space in your inventory in order to have enough for different types of events and missions, but not so much space that you no longer know what weapons and armor mods that you have. Now, going with that, monetizing, there are no loot crates, no treasure bags, nothing like that. The only thing that you can buy are vanity items, cosmetics, skins for your javelins, things like that. Now, they've not said, but in the future there could be new javelins where you have to pay to get the javelins. They've not talked about post-content launch. They haven't even fully explained the content that's going to be at launch. So how can you expect them to talk about things that are coming after launch? In addition, there's no season pass. If they open up new areas or new story or anything, it's going to be available for everyone that owns the game. So if you own a copy of the game, you will have access to all of the content for the game, even post-launch content, so DLC. Now that does not include, like I said, does not necessarily include new javelins. New javelins could very well be pay to play. There will be crafting in Anthem. Now, I am going to venture a guess and say that crafting is going to be limited to consumables only. I say this because of loot drops, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. So you'll get certain items, and you can buy a small amount of crafting materials from merchants at Fort Tarsis, but most of it you'll have to get as you play. All cosmetics and customizations, personalizations can be earned by playing. Now, whether that means it is the cosmetics are a loot drop from enemies, or you get some sort of key or currency enemies or whatever, they haven't said, but you're supposed to be able to earn it by playing, probably at a very slow pace, just how the nature of the beast works. Now, loot drops. There are different rarities: common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and masterworks. Name changes could happen in the future, but that is the current nomenclature. When you buy a pre-order, you get a legendary weapon from either version of the pre-order. And if you get the Legion of Dawn, you get a couple extra things. So the base game, you get a legendary weapon, plus you get an extra javelin skin for the ranger. The next step up, you get that, plus you get a gear mod, and you get a javelin skin for all 4 javelins. So if you want that cosmetic bonus, then you can get it. You have the option. Now the little extras, the weapon and the gear mod, those are likely to be dropped at your level. So you will quickly find something else that will be better as you progress in the game. So it might be good for a few levels, but then all of a sudden you get a level 6 or level 7 rifle or whatever, and it'll all of a sudden become obsolete. Now the loot drops are going to be more of along the lines of Diablo 3, where you have a lot of randomness mixed in with whatever you get. So as far as we know right now, there are weapons and mods, ability mods, or exchanges for your ability. So instead of a mortar, you could have a multi-mortar, and there's different rarities and different stats for each one. So you could get 2 different weapons. They're both epic weapons, and they're both the same type of weapon, say an assault rifle, but the stats and the bonuses that you get with each one could be drastically different. So getting that perfect roll on a gun is going to be a difficult feat. Now going back to, well, let's see. Let's stay with the loot here for just a second more. The loot drops are going to be exclusive to each player, so you can't pick up other people's loot drops, and other people can't pick up yours. Griefing is going to be eliminated or at least minimized. I'm sure someone that's creative will find a way to grief other players. The leader of a squad has the ability to kick other members of the squad. So if you matchmake with other people and you are the leader, so if you and a friend are playing and you matchmake with other people, you should be, or your friend should be, the leader of the squad. And if someone's causing trouble or if they're just standing around doing nothing, you have the ability to get rid of them. There are emotes in the game. What emotes, they haven't said. And as the game goes along, you will likely see more emotes available. And that is kind of a customization, so you can earn it or pay for it. Going back to Fort Tarsis and the Strider, the Fort Tarsis is in a fixed position, but it is at a very high altitude. So even using your jets will get you far. As an aside to that, your jets do overheat. As you progress, you can increase the length of time that you have to fly in the air before you have to land or cool off your jets. You can cool it off by water or by landing, and then you can use them again. There are 10 subregions to the map, which does not sound very large. Now the developers have said that you have to take into consideration that it's not like a plain or a field or a mountain where you just have one surface to deal with. It's more akin to a New York block with skyscrapers on the side. So you have lakes that you can go into, so that's almost like an underground area, and there are going to be some caves. But then there's also going to be floating islands and plateaus and other things that you can fly up to and stand on. So there is this vertical real estate that's involved. So even though it is only 10 subregions, you have to consider that it is more like 20 regions when you take into account the verticality of each region. Now, if they down the line choose to add more real estate, so more subregions to the map, that will be available to all players that own the game, because they do not want to fragment the player base by having sections of the game, missions that are locked away from other players by DLC. So they don't want players to have to choose to play with certain players whether or not they have that content available to them. So everyone will have all the content available to them as far as that goes. Now the Strider will get you closer to the action. So there are fast travel points to different regions, subregions. So you get closer, not as high of an altitude, but closer to the action. So it's kind of a trade-off. You cannot leave your javelin for any reason. If you're outside of Fort Tarsis or the Strider, you cannot get out. It's not a decision that you can make, because that's the same kind of decision of, do I want to drive my car or drive my bicycle on the highway? It may sound like fun at the time, but it's really not a good idea. Same thing here. You don't get out of your javelin. There are some story-related missions where you will need to get out of your javelin, but it's not an option. And it makes sense, because the wildlife on the planet is very dangerous. The smallest of the small, the creatures are about the size of a dog, and everything else is larger and more dangerous. So it would not be advisable to get out of your javelin, and they don't allow it, so it makes sense. The underwater areas are for exploration only, and you have a limited amount of time to explore, as your javelin has some sort of oxygen tank to keep you alive, and once that runs out, then you're dead. So there's no combat in underwater areas. There is only exploration, and it is limited by the amount of oxygen you have in your tank. Now, there will be day and night cycles, and also different weather patterns. So you have sunny and rainy and whatever else they're going to have planned in terms of weather. And as a result of that, you'll have changes to the enemy compositions in any given area with the change of the day, night, or weather. So if it is during the day and it's sunny, there's going to be different enemies than during the night or during different weather. Now, in addition to that, there will be different world events where you have like a special enemy in a certain region, and I assume that will be broadcast either on your map with a ping of some sort, or something to indicate that something is going on that's different than the normal. Now, what about the end game? What is the end game for Anthem, since you have a finite amount of missions and campaign to deal with? So the end game is going to consist of, you have different difficulty levels for the missions that you can do. Again, that will run out at some point. You have different end game activities, including strongholds. You have the Shaper Storms that will require a high level pilot and or javelin, and possibly a raid of some sort where you need either 4 or 8 members in order to complete. Now, in addition to all of that, which is quite robust in itself, you also have the drive for that perfect roll on your abilities and your weapons. So in addition to all these different activities that will be going on a regular basis, you also have the drive, the search, the grind, looking for the perfect set of javelin pieces. So assault rifle or light machine gun or mortar or whatever that is at that top rarity level, Masterworks, Legendary, whatever it's going to happen to be, exotic, we don't know what it's actually going to be called. Top tier rarity with the bonuses and stats that you would love to see on that weapon or ability. Now, as time goes on and we get closer to the launch, there will be more details that will be revealed. Until that time, this is pretty much everything we know. There are some smaller details that I didn't get into, but this is the major stuff. And as new things come out, we can come back and update as needed. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to ring the bell before you leave to be notified of all future episodes as soon as they go live. And thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.